Good evening, everyone. My name is Leda Martin. I'm the Dean of Enrollment at Colorado Christian University. We're so glad to have you with us tonight for our Sunday Night Live Unscripted. We've got lots of faculty with us this evening, and so without further ado, we will go ahead and make introductions. Attendees joining us, please take advantage of the Q&A. This is your time. We don't have this scripted. We'd like to answer as many impromptu questions as you may have this evening, and sincerely want you to leave with questions answered that you might have on your mind. So please take advantage of that for us. We'll start, Dr. Hartwig, by you opening us and saying a few things about the school and this particular program.
Yeah, great. Well, welcome everybody. Super glad that you're here and you're hanging out with us, either live or on the recording. After a little while, I'm Dr. Ryan Hartwig. I'm the Dean of the School of Humanities and Social Sciences, and I also teach in the communication program. So the communication department is my home department. I'm a group and organizational communication scholar and teach in those areas in the department, and so super fun to have you here. I'll also make a couple of quick comments of a couple of things that I think are unique about our program here. The first is our students. I think if you come and you join this department, you'll be interacting with students who are studying communication or strategic communication, or maybe who are doing a minor in digital media or public relations, or are competing on our speech and debate team, and so on. And we just have some of the best students on campus. I mean, seriously, we have such a diverse group of students. We get a lot of student leaders, students who are serving in student government, or like in residence life or in discipleship ministries on campus, and so on, and bring all of that sort of energy. We have a lot of student athletes who study in communication or in our strategic communication program, and that's the super fun, I think, kind of pollination there. And then of course our students who are interested in storytelling and doing lots of cool like video and digital media and social media kind of work and so on. So really, it's a really vibrant community of students who are kind of coming from a lot of different places and then are competing, whether that in media or in debate or in doing speech work and so on. Really vibrant kind of a student community. So that's one thing I would just encourage you about. This is a pretty fun group of students. The second thing, we are really excited about the suite of programs that we offer to our students. So if you come and you're in our department, you can major in two different things. You can major in communication or in strategic communication. I'll speak about those just really briefly. So if you are really interested in kind of learning how to strategically craft messages across a variety of different kind of media, whether that's through video storytelling, or that's through maybe writing for organization, or working in social media, those kinds of areas, Stratcom is the area for you. It really kind of helps to train you how to become really particular in the way that you craft messages and try to move people in particular kinds of ways. So that's the Stratcom major, and within that major, some students will like specialize in digital media, or maybe in public relations that will prepare them to go into the PR industry, and so on. The other major is a communication major. Communication major is that's kind of where I mostly teach, but that's a major that is really helping you to be able to be an effective communicator in a variety of different kinds of interaction contexts. So relational context, interpersonal context, group context, organizational context, public speaking context, and so on. And we really want to help you to become a person who, no matter where it is that the Lord kind of takes you in this world, that you'll be able to effectively build relationships and engage in key interactions. So we give you skill sets around conflict management and how to build teams and how to be effective speakers, effective communicators, and in upfront kinds of situations, but also in relational and organizational kinds of settings and so on. So for those of you who are thinking kind of about a more like a broad-based kind of major, because you're not exactly sure like exactly where it is you want to head next, the communication major is a great option for you. It really helps to give you a wide variety of skill set that will help you and be effective no matter where it is that you kind of go in the future. So that's the second thing I would say is we're excited about our programs and kind of where those things go. And our faculty will talk more about that. And then finally, I'll brag on our faculty real quick. We have really worked hard to assemble a faculty here who has the academic chops, and who understand their fields and are able to teach effectively, but also who have a lot of practitioner experience. We find that our students like to have a blend there of kind of a book knowledge, and doing research and that sort of work, but then also people who've been out there and people who have made a living, and maybe in some cases are still making a living doing the kind of work that we are teaching, and so on. And so we really have a faculty there who blends kind of this academic intellectual expertise with this practitioner level experience, and so on, all within a real desire to care well for our students and help our students grow and mature spiritually and personally, emotionally, all those kind of things I think that you would hope for a Christian college environment. So those are so for all those reasons, I guess I'm excited that you're here and you're learning more about our programs and so on. So glad that you're here. I'll turn it over to Dr. Budzinski, who's the department chair and a professor of communication as well.
Hi, well, thank you. And I'm really excited that you're joining us tonight too. As Dr. Hartwig said, I'm Dr. Diane Budzinski, and I am chair of the Department of Communication and a professor of communication. I teach predominantly in the areas of interpersonal communication, cross-cultural communication, research, and I have been at CCU for 15 years, and I absolutely love it here. The opportunity that I wanted to share a little bit about tonight with all of you is associated with the opportunity to do research with faculty members. I'm really excited about that. For the past 10, 15 years or so, each year I work with, and several other faculty work with students in terms of collaborating on research projects. And then we perfect those research projects and we present them at different professional associations, and such as the Rocky Mountain Communication Association and the Religious Communication Association. And I'm just really excited about research and writing and collaborating on research projects with you all. I just really am thrilled that you're thinking about communication as a major. And we are here to answer any kinds of questions or concerns that you may have, because all of us, I think, would agree that communication, gracious and effective communication is important, not only in your personal life and professional life, but to share the gospel effectively as well. So I just want to welcome you, and I'm really excited that you're going to be meeting our faculty and all their different areas of expertise. So Susan, can I turn it over to you to discuss internships and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, Diane. So glad to be with you tonight on Saturday night. No, it's Sunday Night Live, right? So fun to be together. And I love communication. I've been at CCU for 11 years now, and I have a background in broadcast journalism. I worked at News 4 in Denver. I worked at the Colorado Broadcasters Association. Also did an internship at 9 News. So really well networked with folks in Denver, and that is my passion, you all, is to help you find internships. I'm the communication internship coordinator, and in addition to this amazing academic experience that you're going to have in communication and StratCom, you also want to be able to show employers what you can do. And so I am passionate to come alongside you and help you get a cutting edge internship that is going to help you transition from CCU into whatever the Lord Jesus has for you. So just to give you an idea of some of the internships this semester, we have someone at the Colorado State Capitol. She's an intern with the communications director at the Senate of Republicans. We also have someone at Mosaic Church who is our creative communications intern. We have a marketing intern. We have a video intern that's working at a real estate company. We also have a social media intern at Bear Valley Church. Really big variety, but I want to help you in the area that you are interested in and also help you find out what you're interested in. And you're going to get to hear from one of our, our communication students tonight, Sam Day, and she's going to tell you a little bit later about her awesome internship. And then you see Jackie as well. She was a communication student who also got some amazing experience in film and is now working with CCU. So we just love to journey with you along the way and can't wait to become a part of that adventure with you. So let's go ahead now and we will hear from Dr. Heather Thompson-Day.
Well, hi, everyone. Super happy to be here. I'll echo what everybody else has said. I teach more in the rhetoric area of our communication program, so teaching public speaking, and I'll say this, I know most people, hopefully not comm majors, but a lot of people are afraid to have a public speaking course, but we know through research that once students, and especially freshmen, take a public speaking course, they feel more confident in all of their other courses. So we view it as a very foundational but important course for the rest of your communication program. And so we really look at how do we connect, not just interpersonally, but how do I connect to a large audience? And how do I do that through obviously verbal communication, but now that we are moving more into like a digital society, how do we connect to a large audience online? How on Twitter with 280 characters do I say something that immediately makes people who are in the scroll mode stop and say, what was this? And who was this? And how do I find out more? So we look at really just connection and how do we build relationships between people and the target markets that those people are trying to reach. So really happy to be here. A little bit about me is I am a public speaker. I travel all across the country speaking, and now internationally, especially with Zoom. I'm really grateful for that. I was in Jakarta a couple weeks ago, so we weren't able to do that before. So I'm excited about that. And I write books, and so I think something that is unique that I've been able to bring to our CCU program and with our students is if I have a student that says to me, you know, Dr. Day, I'm interested in the strat comm and I want to be a filmmaker. Well, I have friends that are filmmakers that then come into the class and Zoom in and talk to you. If somebody says to me, how do I write a book? I'm in communication. I really want to write a book. I'll have my publishing agent come in and talk to our students. So I think we are uniquely positioned and lucky to have really good relationships in the Christian community altogether that we get to connect our students to. And I think that that's a unique thing at CCU and that I know students are really excited to be a part of. I don't know who is supposed to talk next.
Go ahead, Sam.
Hi, everyone. My name's Sam, Director. I'm the head coach of the speech and debate team here at CCU. And just to give you a broad overview of what we do, it's an interdisciplinary group of students. You don't have to be a comm major. We have students from outside comm, but we also want students from inside comm. And we compete in both speech and debate events. And I think a lot of people hear debate team and they think, oh my goodness, I have to care about debating. We actually have people who do just speech events. And if that distinction is new to you, I'm happy to give you more information about that. But just very roughly, debating is when you argue about the ideas and argue about who's right. But there's this whole category of speech events where you can give a persuasive speech or an informative speech. And we, in a normal year, travel the country and compete all over the place. And we have a great time doing it. And we've had a lot of success at the national level. And students from our team go on to prestigious law school or prestigious private sector jobs and things like that. And two things I just want to emphasize before I stop talking is number one, the whole program is so generously provided for by the university. So I think a lot of students think, oh, I would do this, but it would cost me money. In fact, most students on the team now are receiving scholarships and none of the expenses of the travel and competition comes out of students' pockets. And the other thing I want to emphasize is how people are often intimidated by public speaking. So Dr. Day mentioned that public speaking is a big fear. People rank it higher than their fear of death. I always tell my students that we're all afraid of public speaking, but the goal is just to be better and better at hiding our fear of public speaking, maybe not. But the point I'm making in a roundabout way is that you don't need any experience to do speech and debate. Some of our best students right now showed up on day one and didn't know a word about what speech and debate was, but they were just willing to be there and willing to learn new things. So if there's one thing I could communicate right now, it's that if you're just interested in speech and debate and you've never done it before, you are exactly the kind of student that we're interested in, and you don't need to have any prior experience. And I will put my email in the chat if people have any questions about speech and debate at CCU. And yeah, hope you all learn a lot from this event.
And then finally, let's hear from our students, and then we'll do Q&A.
Okay, I can go first. I'm Sam Day. I'm from Lakewood, Colorado. I'm a comm student with a digital media minor, and I'm a senior. So I think we can hear from Jodea next.
Heyo. My name is Jodea. I'm currently a sophomore. I'm double majoring actually in communication and rhetoric and biblical studies. And I'm also hoping to minor in theater. But just kind of adding all those things together is kind of my thing. So yeah.
Well, I'll get us started off here with some questions that have come in by text and email. The first question is with regard to the different types of classes I'll be taking and what's the workload like. So whoever would like to jump in and speak to that first.
I can. So it depends on what track you end up taking. So if you do more of the strategic communication, you'll be learning not just communication strategies, but also how do I actually use this equipment? How do I edit a video that I could put together for a church or for a business that I'm working for, a recruiting video for a university? So those are classes, audio and that you would do in the StratComm. And if you do communication and rhetoric, you take classes like interpersonal communication, which is actually the class I took as a sophomore in college. And I tell everybody it changed my life. It is a life-changing course. And I think it's super important. Cross-cultural communication. The workload, it depends probably on who you're taking it from. I know if you take it from Dr. Hartwig, all I hear is about small group communication and how difficult, but how life-changing and transformative it is. So I think it probably depends on the course and what level it is, how the workload goes, but I'm sure our students could speak to that as well.
Yeah, so when it comes to the workload, it depends on how you manage yourself academically, how studious you are, of course. But like Dr. Day had noted, it really depends on what track you're taking. Personally, being in rhetoric, there's a few things that I won't be pursuing, like the equipment side of things and the understanding of like how those specifically work, because I know editing and a lot of media takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to really get it down. But when it comes to like the coursework itself, you'll find a lot of reading. That's something you'll need to be pretty proficient in, is reading and comprehension, and also learning to write well. Of course, it's communication. So those are two big things that you'll need to understand proficiently. And apart from that, I guess a lot of the coursework you get in communications is actually a lot of fun. I know in one of Bazinski's class, interpersonal, is actually like one of the assignments was like just to talk with people and to take note of how they interacted, like their facial expressions, and you just literally are just kind of taking note in secret so you can analyze it later. So a lot of that coursework is kind of fun and definitely build you up as a person as well.
Yeah, I just add to that. I think because of the nature of our program, I think there's a lot of hands-on kind of work. So certainly on the StratComm side, the digital media side, you're in the midst there. In fact, Professor Stanbrook has joined us, who teaches over in our digital media program. Maybe he can speak a little bit to the rhythm in his classes, where he does these gallery walks, and he can speak to that in a second. On the other side, and in terms of communication classes and so on, I think as Jodea, kind of mentioned, we're wanting you to get out there and to see it in action and then to practice it. So for instance, in my small group comm class, I put students in a group for the entire semester. And I tell them this is kind of like your lab. Like if you're in a biology course, you would be doing a lab along the way that you're learning biology, but you're going to be as part of this group. And I'm asking you to try to try out the stuff that we're talking about, try to experience it and see if we can't find a way for your group to be able to gel together and to experience those problems and so on. So a lot of it's very, very hands-on, but certainly conceptual as well. We want you to be able to think well about it, but then also be able to do it. And so you're going through kind of building your mind while you're also building your skill tool belt, if you will. Professor Stanbrook, would you speak a little bit about your gallery walks and the way that you?
For sure. And I think what we're alluding to here is that most of the digital media programs that I'm designing and teaching are very much hands-on. With this And Sam's shaking her head yes, because she actually was part of the crew that went to the Super Bowl with me this year. So those are the kinds of things that we're talking about as far as getting hands-on experience. But the classrooms are that way as well, as Dr. Hartwig was referring to. I'm a big fan of gallery walks, which means that, you know, usually we're training on one day, and the other day that you come into class, everybody puts their work up. And again, we're in a digital media world, so that might be a graphic, it might be some kind of app that you've designed. I mean, whatever we're working on in class. And again, the classes that I'm working on are digital media, visual storytelling, visual culture, graphic design, and then we have all of the university media classes that are truly hands-on, producing content for Coug Media, which is the student-led media outlet for content there. So yeah, it's a lot of hands-on stuff. I don't know, Sam, have you spoken to this yet? I think your feedback would probably be pretty great based on what you just experienced a few weeks ago.
Yeah, so comm can be, I think, whatever you want the experience to be, it's going to be. So if you want to be hands-on and be, you know, digital media minor, and you're going to definitely get that experience working in video editing, whatever it may be. I think a highlight would be just being around students who are like-minded and creative in that way, just being understood. And yeah, I would just say, if you are a creative person, like, there is a place for you in comm. There's a place for you here. We love you. And yeah, just go heads in, whatever you're interested in. There is classes for you that you will love, for sure.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think that many of us take the approach, as Dr. Day mentioned, to get the expert lecturers come in to our class. And even through COVID, we've been able to Zoom those folks in. So you're going to have an awesome textbook. You're going to hear from expert guest lecturers. And then one other thing that I really enjoy doing is taking students into the field. And it's been a little tricky right now, but I'll tell you, we have had gracious employers that have done a video tour of their industry, and I've been able to bring that into the classroom. But Lord willing, hopefully we'll be able to get back out there so that you don't only study PR, you're going to go to a PR industry and see hands-on what that's like. And I know for me, that lit a fire when I went to Channel 7, and that's what I pray also for our students, that it lights a fire when they get to experience these things in a personal way.
And I apologize, I missed Dr. Day's speech, but most of the people you're looking around here are the experts. Yeah.
All right. We have another question, and Joe Day, I think you might have even spoken to this a little bit, but a question around what are the characteristics of a successful student in these various majors and programs. Specifically, I am not a public speaker. So if whoever would like to speak to that question for someone interested in communication that may not be interested in public speaking as a part of what they believe they're called to professionally.
I would just say that I dislike public speaking. I have a big fear of public speaking. It's okay. We welcome you. There's a lot of people that do not like to public speak, and everybody is here to support you and wants you to get better. It is a big part of communication. You do public speaking in every single class, but it's nothing to be afraid of, seriously. Yeah.
I think it's also something important to note, like just speaking to like the characteristics of a communications kid. A lot of people, when they hear communications, people are like, oh, you're like spastic and outgoing and energetic and all these things. And that's true to an extent, but also, and this is something that I've learned from Heather Day like several times, like the best leaders are introverts. Like those that lead the best are people that listen well. So I think it's important to understand that it goes both ways. Like being in communications is learning in what environment is it like appropriate to be like spastic and out there and outgoing, and also when to sit and listen and engage interpersonally or in a group setting or what have you. So communications, if you're not into public speaking, then it's you'll learn the times and places where that's not needed, because it's not always needed. I love public speaking. Like, that's something that I just really love engaging with, but I also can understand the times when that's not necessary. And there's, I mean, of course, we all have like the fear and like the nerves. Everyone gets nervous. So I think it just kind of speaks to that. Communications is like a place, a home for everyone, really. So if that helps.
From the digital media side, I mean, actually, we're usually training the people on how to produce or direct or edit or, you know, shoot, or it's all the behind the scenes stuff that makes those things happen. So yeah, while there are some on-camera talent type people, most of the skill sets that we're training are, you know, everything again that's behind the camera or behind the scenes that makes it happen, whether that's from the business standpoint or the creative, or like I said, the director. Yeah, all that stuff happens. So that's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun.
Great. Anybody else want to speak to that? Did you, Dr. Budzinski?
Well, the only thing I was going to add to that is that is true. As a communication major, employers will expect you to have some level of proficiency in public speaking, regardless of where your area of emphasis is within communication. But we oftentimes describe it as like a three-legged wheel, that you have to have strong verbal skills, but you also have to have strong writing skills, and you have to have strong visual skills. So we argue that a competent communicator needs to be at least proficient in all three of those legs, but you can emphasize, and your special giftedness, you might, you know, lean to one of those legs more than the other. So I would say that you would be expected to have some level of public speaking expertise, but you can emphasize more in the writing or the creative visual part of it, or more the interpersonal or team leading. So lots of different areas in which you can claim as your special area of expertise. And by the way, that's true of the faculty too. Some of the faculty, their strengths is in writing, some is in speaking, some is in the verbal, some is in the visual, some is leading teams. So we all have our giftedness, and so that'll be true of each of you as well.
I'm going to geek out for just a quick second here. I won't go too long, okay? But I think this is important. So I think most of us come to communication thinking about kind of the presentational way of thinking about communication. In our field, we talk about it. My students here will know exactly where I'm going right now, but we talk about that in terms of kind of a transmissional way of understanding communication, that we're moving information from one place to another, and we're trying to move people in a particular kind of a way. I don't teach communication primarily that way. I more so teach communication from what I would call a constitutive perspective. To constitute means to make. And so I teach communication from a perspective that as we are interacting and the way that we interact, we are ultimately making our worlds. We are helping to make other people. We're helping to make the teams and the groups that we live on, and the families that we're part of. We're making Dr. Budzinski's world, we're making the particular kind of relationships, and then the dynamics of those relationships or those groups or the organizations and so on. And if you think about it, right, if your family is dysfunctional, why is your family dysfunctional? It's because your family's communication is dysfunctional. The way that you interact with one another is incredibly problematic. If you hate the workplace that you're at, you're like, man, I hate working here. Well, why do you hate working there? You hate working there because the interaction patterns there, they stink, and you see them as dysfunctional. And so we're trying to train you to become a person who's then able to recognize the challenge, the dysfunction, the problem, and then learn how to create something different, how you can actually engage there and how you can intervene to make a difference there. And so, I think, it's important. I mean, there will be, I think, as Dr. Budzinski was saying, kind of this presentational skill set. You do need to be able to speak. You do need to be able to write well. You do need to be able to have some visual skills, be able to create and so on. At the same time, we really want you to be able to be people who are able to interact in particular ways in different kinds of contexts where you can bring real positive change, where you can reflect, I think, the God's design for how we were made to interact with one another, and how we were to be able to build positive kinds of relationships and working environments and those kinds of things as well. And so I think, when we talk about calm here, I just want to be clear, we're talking about all of that. I think usually, we talk about kind of the presentational elements of that. And yeah, we're going to teach you that. And most of us are okay at that. That's something you've got to be able to learn. It's going to help you learn how to speak and present and do those kinds of things. But we also really want you, as I think as Professor Stanbrook said, you may be an outstanding communication professional or an outstanding communication practitioner. Let's not even say a professional. And you may not have these sort of upfront kinds of skills. No problem. We want to help you realize how you can diagnose the challenges that are there and then intervene effectively. Forgive my geek out for more than a couple of minutes.
Thanks, Dr. Hartwig. We do have a question from Kate. Kate said, my goal is to write and work in radio theater. What kind of things would you do to provide skills and internship opportunities? And then the second part of her question, do you have internships with focus on the family? So who would like to speak to that? Susan?
Sure, I would love to speak to that. Kate, I'm so excited for you. Radio theater, what a cool thing to get into. And whether we have a direct contact immediately or not, we will find someone to help you get more experience in the particular field that you want some experience in. So I do want to tell you that we just had a student, a communication student, Brooke, who landed a cutting edge internship at Focus on the Family, and she's going to be doing that this summer in digital media. We also have a student that is working there right now, Megan, who is an event planner for Focus on the Family. So please let's be in touch, and I would love to help you to really specialize in the area that you want to gain those skills in. Be in touch.
So many of us have lots of contacts in all of the work that I've done in Hollywood and different things like that. I actually know Paul McCusker and John Fornoff, both major writers for Adventures in Odyssey. So, but does that mean I can open a door? Well, I don't know, but would I make the phone call? Yeah, why not? Again, my goal as a professor is, how do I raise up the next generation? If you're seeking something, my goal is to help you figure that out, right? And to shape a lot of the things that I'm working on. And that happens in the context of every one of my classes, for even though there's larger assignments, they're shaped toward what it is that you're heading toward.
Thanks. That I think leads to another question that we have regarding what are some projects or assignments that are resume builders. So things that I could add to my resume that might cause me to stand out once I apply for a job in this field.
Yeah, I'm going to take this one. So in my classes, so I try to build my classes honestly around kind of a signature project. Every class I do does this. So I don't teach a ton at CCU now because I do a decent bit of administration, but the classes I do teach. So first of all, small group comm. I put students in this, I call it a small group enterprise project. And I kind of already explained that, where they get together, this is their laboratory, and so on. But students will take on really significant projects. I've got one group right now, this is unbelievable. This group is going to try to raise $17,000. You catch that, $17,000 for basically like for foster care, foster care advocacy and so on in the area. If they do that, you talk about a resume builder, absolutely. I have seen so many students over the years, as I've taught that class, they'll do these projects that are just super significant. And I push them pretty hard to do something beyond what they think they can do. Most of them will come in and be like, we're going to raise $200 to be able to do this. And I'm like, no, I want to push you, right? Try to figure out, okay, how can you do this? And they're not all fundraising, but that's one that's happening even right now. Several years ago, I had a student group come together, and they were working kind of for on behalf of like teenage moms who are kind of pregnancy at risk and so on, and trying to help them to be able to really think about keeping their babies and so on. And so this organization was about to go under, and they caught the vision for this organization and said, how can we help? And they said, we need as much money as you guys can get us. And so what they did, they put together kind of like a man pageant, if you will, like a funny kind of, man pageant where the guys would, dress up and dance and do silly talent shows and so on. They charged everybody who came in a fee in order to raise the money, and they raised $1,700 for this. And I remember then reviewing some of these students' resumes years later, and they were, they're talking about this because this is showing. Look at the initiative that this shows, right? This is just a group project, but here's what I did with this group project, what me and my group did. And then in my organizational comm class, I have students go out and do an org culture analysis. And I have to tell you, I was super glad. A couple of weeks ago, I was having one of my students from last semester said, hey, can we grab coffee? And so we're grabbing coffee, and she says, hey, guess what? I'm actually interviewing for a full-time position at this organization where I had studied. And she told me, and she said, yeah, I didn't know them until I did this project. Because of this project, she stretched. She really applied herself. She tried to get into an organization, kind of in an industry that was kind of a leading organization that she knew would be, that would push her. But she did. And in the course of doing that project, she so impressed the leadership there by her poise, by the questions she asked, by the way that she did this project, that when they had a position come open, the lead guy there said, hey, I want you to go think about her. And so he instructed his staff member to go reach out to her and say, hey, would you be interested in this job? And so she was having that interview. I've had other students through that one who've done their projects, and when they get done, they tell me, yeah, the organization told me that, hey, when you graduate, come and give us a call because we would love to be able to hire you. And so we're trying to get students who are out there. That's just in my class. I'll let my colleagues share too, because I know they've got those examples as well.
Great. Again, the question was, what may I be engaged in that would be distinct that I could add to my resume? Are there assignments or projects? Another question is about research. So can you speak to those, again, in the various faculty and what you might have students doing that's unique that might be a resume builder?
I can talk to social media class. Of course, in public speaking, we're creating speeches that I hope you will use. In advanced public speaking, my goal is to do it with recording so that you have videos of yourself that you could hand out should you go into that type of direction. But in social media, the goal is to create something that goes viral. So that is absolutely something that if you're going to join a digital media team for some type of organization, to be able to say, here's the numbers of viral content that I've created, here's how we do audience analysis, here's how, that's really attractive to employers, especially who are really leaning into this next generation to look at how do we create viral content. So those are, and we also create in social media class, social media resume by the end of the semester so that you can apply for these internships in social media after taking the class.
Heather, can you talk about your class this last semester and what they got to go viral and how many hits?
Yeah, I don't remember. Jess maybe remembers how many hits. The last time I looked, I think it was over 70,000. So, and they had created a viral TikTok. I'm teaching a course in May called Creating Viral Content that I think we're going to work with Christianity Today and creating content for them. So, and that's something that you can put on your resume. Hey, was able to create content for Christianity Today. In the social media class, we created content for a church in Denver. So we will try to connect you with the relationships that we have. And I think that that is invaluable to be able to connect and say, I've worked with these various organizations that people recognize and people respect. And I think there's a great respect for CCU, like I said, in the broader Christian community.
I know I can kind of speak. Sorry, Joe. I graduated from CCU in 2017, and I was a communication major with an emphasis in digital media and journalism. But I can kind of speak and attest to how valuable the things you're doing in your class are applicable on your resume after you graduate when you're applying to things directly through connections with Susan Pahlau and some other professors, I got my job directly out of college, working with an author who wanted to turn his book into a movie. And so I was able to show him digital reels that I had created and social media projects that I had actually done to show him how I could be a communication director for him and what that would look like. And then it got to fuse my passion for film, which I discovered through working with CCU TV through Coog Media. So that was in kind of its earlier days, which was fun too, because we almost got to develop it as it was happening. So those are things you can put on your resume that you have to develop, you know, a media institution on campus, which is incredible. And you can show them clips and you can show them how people were interacting with it. And so these are very tangible things. And that's probably the most valuable part of this school and this department and these professors is that they're all very tangible in not only creating things you can take with you from a social media or communication perspective, but also from a spiritual perspective. They make sure that you are able to take your faith on your own 2 feet and you're able to communicate it well, whether that be through words, whether it be through your actions, and mostly by just how you treat other people. And that comes from understanding people. And that's the ultimate goal of this department is understanding story and how to tell that story and how to hear other people's story. So they really infuse that into you. And that's something that I use every day, whether that's with my passion film, whether that's working at CCU, you never know where it's going to lead you. It's a very broad kind of umbrella, which is also super freeing. It was scary at first, but it's very freeing once you graduate because you can use it in almost anything. So just to kind of attest to that and how it really does impact where you go afterwards because you have tangible things on your resume that people recognize.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I just also wanted to add another example. So if you take public relations, you're going to finish that class with an entire portfolio with PR pieces like a media pitch and a news release and code of ethics and a white paper so that you can show that industry and speak their language. You know the jargon, you're familiar with that particular field. And Sam, do you have anything that you want to add to that? Because I know you've taken quite a few classes at this point. Do you feel like you're building your portfolio?
Yes, 100%. I would say that I've gained so many opportunities from so many classes, like small group. We got to write up a grant proposal for a nonprofit. There's so many things. I know that Professor Paul and Dr. Day have helped me build my resume, especially with the PR class, which was super beneficial and create a lot of amazing connections. And then also a lot of Professor Stanbrook's classes, his digital media. If you go into digital media, any of those classes, you're going to finish out with a portfolio at the end. Hey, I can create a podcast. I can create a mini documentary. I can design a magazine cover. I can create a logo. I know Photoshop. I know all the Adobe products, and here's the end result. And you can give that to somebody, an employer, and show them what you can do. So there's a lot that you can do. Just take advantage of the opportunities that you're given, and you'll see how much you grow.
Thank you, Sam. Dr. Budzinski, could you speak specifically to the research component of that question? What current research are students engaged in?
I would love to address that question. Well, students do take a research class, but research is embedded in many of our classes. But students also can work with a faculty member and work through a project. And so, for example, we have a research internship projects going on. And then students actually think of their own research question that they want to conduct a research study on, and they conduct the study and they write it up and they present it at a conference. And just for some examples, last fall, some students are really interested in how COVID affects our interactions with each other. And so they did a research project looking at that. We've had projects, in fact, one student interviewed about 24 individuals from all different cultures to look at how hospitality is defined differently across cultures. And her research was selected as the top research article presented at the Rocky Mountain Communication Association. And then now her piece is being considered for publication in a journal. And that's a really big deal. Communication is the basis of communication is foundation. Research is foundation in it, theory is foundation in it. And sometimes students scream when they hear the words theory and research, but our prayer is that by the end of our classes that they really see the value in theory and in research. And I know Dr. Day oftentimes says this too, that it is fun, that theory research is fun, and we enjoy doing projects. And I think that is an incredible resume builder, to say that you have conducted a piece of research and you presented that research and now it's being considered for publication. That's a really fascinating, important resume builder. And I just want to say too that we had a student graduate last December, and after she graduated, she was looking for jobs, and she secured a job at a research firm, marketing research firm. And she was really well prepared for that. And I was just really happy for her. And she really saw the value of research as well. So we'd love to do writing with you. We'd love to collaborate on research projects and writing projects. And yeah, in fact, that's probably my happy place, having a Dr. Pepper or Diet Pepsi and popcorn and collaborating on research projects with students. So yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much for answering that. Attendees, I just want to open it up and make sure that you are asking your questions. You're posting them in the Q&A. We're here to answer whatever's on your mind. If it's about CCU in general, if it's about these programs or majors specifically, whatever you'd like to know, please post your questions. In the meantime, I've got more emails and text questions. This one comes from a mom. The field of communication is terribly biased and negative. How will you ensure my daughter maintains a godly perspective on the calling she has for communication? Seems that God content is not terribly viral, I think is, yeah.
Jess, you want to take that one? You made a career of this, so.
Yeah, I sure have. It's interesting. I actually think back to a conversation I had with Natalie Tisdall, who is, she's been all over the place here in Denver and a bunch of other places, but one of the morning anchors and morning host shows. And her comment was, I mean, I've asked her in interviews in front of students and different things, the same kind of question. And she said, well, if I wasn't there, imagine the unbalance that would be there. And she's a strong believer. And so it's interesting, there's many times, and we talk about in my classes a lot, where, the media is a very anti-Christian place to be involved. And yet many of us choose to be involved in that space on purpose, because again, if we weren't there, who would be able to speak the word of God into what was going on? And sometimes we don't always get to speak it immediately. A big part of my class is being excellent in training up what it is that your skill set is going to be. And because a lot of times there would be huge bias or discrimination if you walked onto a set and said, hey, I want to talk to you about Jesus, and then you'd be off of that set in a flash, right? But if you're fantastic at what you do and you get better, eventually somebody's going to ask you the why question. And I call that the 1 Peter 3:15 moment. In other words, always be prepared to share the reason that you have your faith and with mercy and grace. And that opens this door. And my comment regularly is, do you really want to know? And it's what we teach in our classes. And if somebody asks, I said, well, hey, I know this guy, and he wrote a book. Hang on, it's shucks, it's a bestseller. Oh, the Bible, yeah. And before you know it, you're in these crazy conversations, and you've drawn people in, and it literally can change the industry. So yeah, my comment on that is that yes, as you see the media bias and the way that it sits there now, Well, if we're not involved, it's only going to get worse.
If there's also a lot of components to communications that help us build in our Christianity. I think with that question, like a resume builder, like the thought I had was about the fact that this field, and just any field that has to do with people, really is like a testimony builder. Being in this field specifically, like my personal testimony has grown to the point where I am way more comfortable to even share it. To have the ability to confidently sit down with someone and be like, hey, this is my story. This is like the do it again moments from my life that I want to be in your life. And I think it's important, just like communications or communication as a field of study. It's important for me specifically. I chose it because it gives you the ability to speak for yourself, but it also gives you ability to speak for those who can't speak for themselves. It gives you the ability to sit down with people and help those views be shared and seen and heard. So I think that's a big part of why we study communication. And it's exactly what Dr. Stanbrook was saying. Like, if we don't do something, if we don't go to those places, then it's only going to get worse. So if we go there with the intention to help the unheard be heard and to share what we have to say and are comfortable in that, then it'll create a shift and it'll create change. And it goes even with what Dr. Hartwig was saying, like creating something, like what we do affects people, and that like permeates out, it goes out and changes, and all of a sudden like one small voice has like changed the world in a way. So I think that's also really important to know.
Great, thank you so much. So I think we have another question from a parent. What types of jobs are available for graduates, and what types of, so where have you placed students, and also graduate programs, etc. So I guess basically, what do students do once they graduate from CCU? What kinds of jobs do they go on to? What kinds of graduate level work do they go on to?
I would love to take that one. We love keeping in touch with our alumni, and we think it's really important to not only know, but we want to encourage them in their walk and where they're heading. And I want to just read a few that I've highlighted. We took a poll and did some data just this past November, just to give you an idea of some of where our alumni are right now. So we have a student who did an internship at Communication Strategy Group and then was hired on at Communication Strategy Group as a coordinator of a strategy team. As Dr. Basinski mentioned, in research, we have a student who works at Everythingist at SoGo Survey, doing some research there. We have a Denver artist and photographer. We have someone who is on staff with a missions agency called Avant and is working at a media center in Spain. And I actually get to teach and keep in touch with her and hear her updates. Pretty neat. We have another student who's obtaining their master's degree at Denver Seminary in mental health counseling and instructor at Playwell Technologies as well. As I mentioned, we have an event planner at Focus on the Family. We have a group life pastor at Willow Creek Community Church, a preschool teacher. We also have a high school teacher. We have one student who is at ATP Flight School. Pretty cool. We have another who is a military recruiter, someone who is in real estate, and one who is an on-air personality PSA director with Cherry Creek Media Montrose. So that just gives you a recent and current idea of the variety and just so many possibilities of what our communication students are doing. We're so proud of them.
I think I just highlight a couple things there too, as Professor Pahlau was speaking. So you see some students are going kind of into the communication industry. So, that student at Communication Strategy Group, that's a Stratcom agency, and, is working there in the field. You have other students who are doing work in social media, writing, doing some journalistic kind of things and so on. Then you see other students who are going in a lot of different directions. And I think one of the things I would just say is I think that communication is a great program. Really, both of our programs, communication and strategic communication, are great programs that will set you up to be able to go in a lot of different directions as you move forward. The skill set that you will gain, whether that's kind of a messaging skill set or that sort of interaction skill set, will set you up to be successful in business life, in nonprofit life, a variety of different kinds of recruiting, human resource, general management, leadership kinds of roles, ministry, pastoral ministry, counseling, all of those different kinds of areas. These are great programs that can really help set you up for success there. Sam, in terms of the speech and debate team, I'd love for you to comment on where some of your students are going as well there.
Yeah, so we have a lot of people who go on to graduate study from speech and debate, and we have people who enter the private sector immediately. So in terms of graduate study, we have one student right now doing a master's degree at the University of Denver in international relations who wants to work for the State Department. And I think he actually just got a job in China in some capacity. And then we have a lot of students who go on to law school, and that's kind of the biggest feeder path that we have. So over the years, we placed students at Northwestern Law, the University of Virginia Law, Notre Dame Law, and many more. And they've gone on to work in prestigious clerkships and private sector jobs and all of that. In terms of people who just enter the workforce immediately, we have people who've gone into accounting, general areas of business, teachers. And what I always try to encourage students to realize is that speech and debate is just about learning to communicate any message to any audience in the most effective way possible. And I always try to get them to see, in 20 years, no one cares who won this trophy or that trophy, or if you do care about that still, maybe that speaks to something bad about your character and so forth. But that we do care about the tangible skills that we get and how we can communicate with people. So I always tell them to keep an eye to that. And basically, it's just about getting the skills to communicate in whatever field you enter. And yeah.
Great. I'm curious, Sam and Jodea, what do you believe God is calling you to after you graduate? Sam, would you like to go first?
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. So I don't graduate till December, so I have a little bit of time, but I have had a lot of different experience prior to college and through college doing many different things, taking advantage of the opportunities that COM has given me, and especially an internship that Professor Pahlau has gotten me, working for Narrow Performance. It's a brain center downtown, working in social media. So social media has kind of become my focus and kind of my area of expertise. And so I probably will end up doing something similar to that or working in digital media. But otherwise, I just really fell in love with the creative side of communication. So I'll probably be leaning towards that. But like Dr. Hartwig was saying, there's so much that you can do with communication. And that's been my experience, that I foresee myself being in a lot of different careers and enjoying those. So I'm really excited for what's to come.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of similar to what Sam has said. I kind of view myself doing full-time ministry in a lot of areas. My majors are communication and biblical studies, just kind of like communicating Bible. So it kind of like speaking and preaching. A lot, kind of very similar to Heather Day's occupation. So writing and speaking and traveling, but also a big part of that is teaching. I've also seen myself pursuing res life, doing residence life on college campuses, and really trying to encourage college age kids, but also I have a passion for youth ministry, especially for young men. So I will be doing a lot in that world. And then obviously similar to Sam, also like a lot of the digital sides of things and being able to express whatever I'm doing in that way is going to be really cool. So a lot of fields, a lot of careers I'm hoping to pursue and to, I guess, achieve. So, yeah.
That's great. Thanks, both of you. Even though I think we touched on it a bit earlier, it bears covering again and maybe in a bit more detail. How do we integrate our faith in Jesus Christ and a Christian worldview into the various communication courses, programs, majors at CCU?
Boy, I'll try to take that one. I think in every class, in every moment, we are looking for opportunities there. So I think, what I hope is happening in the classroom, in my classroom at least, is certainly I have planned for moments where we talk about really understanding things from a Christian worldview perspective. So for instance, I'm teaching right now, I'm teaching small group communication. And so we're talking about teams, and I lay out, the first team that I'm aware of is the Trinity. And we open up our Bibles to Ephesians chapter 1, and we say, okay, how is salvation accomplished? And holy cow, look at that. It's accomplished by God the Father, Jesus the Son, and the Holy Spirit, then guaranteeing it, right? And so we're just constantly looking for those opportunities. I'm planned for those opportunities. I was just lecturing last week about the body of Christ, and I guess my lecture was on leadership, but I want to critique that a little bit in terms of how we privilege leaders over followers. And so I present before the students the body of Christ, passage from 1 Corinthians, and we lay that out. And we talk about the two complexes that we see there. Jodea is actually in that class. We talk about the superiority complex, right? We look down our noses at other people and think our gifts are better, or the inferiority complex, that we look at other people and we say, my gifts are not as important or not as valuable as those are. And we kind of try to say, okay, what happens actually if we then look at, like, through the lens of the scriptures here, and so on. And so, man, I'm looking for these opportunities constantly to be saying, how do the scriptures kind of give us a way to think about these different kinds of concepts in a really particularly Christian way. And then secondly, though, I really wanted to say, Lord, like, Holy Spirit, would you show me what needs to happen today? I'm trying to be pretty intentional lecturer and discussion facilitator and so on, but I'm also trying to say, Lord, what are you speaking and what are you doing? And is there something that's up here, and can I perceive that? And can I lean into that? And so I think that how that happens looks a little bit different in each of our classes in terms of kind of, I think, our personalities and kind of our pedagogies and so on. But certainly I would say that I think those two things, where we're really trying to say, okay, how do the scriptures, or how does our faith help us to think about these sort of ideas, and how does it maybe challenge kind of mainstream ideas and so on? We're all doing that. And I think we also are trying to be really just present and saying, Lord, like, Holy Spirit, what do you want to do right now, right? This is your classroom. This is your campus. These are your students. You love them more than I ever could. And so how can I hear your voice, and how can I speak to them as we hear from the Lord?
Well, the exciting thing about it too is that, what I enjoy is I spend a lot of time in the quote unquote real world of media. And when I walk into a class, I like to start with prayer and invite the Holy Spirit in to say, hey man, you're the creative, like, let's help us be as creative as we can. And I even say to the students, I love that I can do this, and that we can do this together. So yeah, there is that opportunity to cross that hard line that you may not be able to I'll call it the secular world, but I know Dr. Hartwig would say no, because it all is combined, and he's right with that. But just the delineation on that is there are places that it's not safe per se to start a conversation or to be able to do that. And so that's an honor and a privilege to be able to include that in the context of our instruction here.
Yeah, and I'd like to just also add that we're very intentional too in terms of evaluating the theory and the research that's done in our field from a Christian perspective. That's so important for us, and it's integrated throughout all our classes in different ways, but we're really intentional about that. So for example, in interpersonal communication, our textbooks will not have a chapter on gratitude, or have a chapter on forgiveness or grace or redemption or celebrating relationships. But from a Christian perspective, we can't ignore those things. And so we will critique the field from a Christian perspective too. And I love doing that. And I think it's really important for students to be able to look at a theory and say, well, that's really a selfish motivation according to this theory. And as Christians, our motivation should be to serve others and to serve our Lord, and not just to get ahead in the world. And I think we do that really well in the field of communication.
just want to add too that something I have found to be very unique about CCU, and it is possible it's in all the departments. I only know mine, so I've seen it in my department, is it's not even just about what we talk about, which is absolutely there in the classroom, but we live this. Like our students, I have lunch or coffee with a student almost 5 days a week. We are literally doing life with our students and there for mentorship with our students. And I think that all of these things combine, because if a student, like we were talking about earlier, like what do I do on my resume? Our students know us. They're able to come sit in our office and say, here's where I want to go. Here's what I want to do. Help me get there. And I don't think that there's one professor here who wouldn't want to see that student succeed and pour all of their energy. I remember a student that was doing a documentary and they were trying to figure out how stuff worked in the studio. And so they're calling Jess on their cell phone and he's answering for them, right? Like we are very available for our students, I think, because we live this thing and we believe it. And I personally just think it's the greatest honor to help walk with this next generation, right, of kingdom builders into wherever they're headed next. Like that's an honor for me. And I think our department really all gels and feels the same way.
I would say each and every single one of these professors just live and breathe their faith, like inside and outside of the class. It's very apparent. And it's given me and my classmates a lot of confidence to like go out into the real world and be who we are, and to do our work well, and to love the people that we are working with well. So it's really great major to be a part of.
Thank you, Sam. Well, thanks everyone. I think Dr. Day, what I would comment on is how much our alum Jackie and our two students, Sam and Jodea, were nodding to everything you were saying. So granted, we're paid spokespeople, but the proof is in the pudding, right? Of our current students and alum that are in agreement with everything that's been offered. So we've come to the end of our time this evening. And so we want to thank the panelists and all of the attendees for joining us. And we would like to close in prayer to pray for all of you as you are searching for the right university in which the Lord is calling you to. And this tremendous calling, be it whatever God has for you in the field of communication. So Dr. Hartwig, would you close us in prayer this evening?
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Lord, thanks for tonight, and thanks for this opportunity to spend some time, God, with these students and maybe some parents who are just checking out CCU and checking out the communication programs here, and certainly are God, asking for your direction, God, your guidance as they think about a college choice. It's a big choice, and Lord, I pray, God, that you would bless them as they walk through that process. I pray you'd give them clarity. You'd help them to know the right place for their son or their daughter. Pray, Lord, you'd help them to know the unique kind of education that Colorado Christian provides. And Lord, I pray you'd give them a great sense of peace and of comfort, Lord, as they walk through this time. Lord, may they know, God, that you care so much about them, and God, that you will direct them to the place, Lord, that you would have them to be. Thanks, Lord, for this time. Please bless all those, Lord, who are watching, whether live or on the recording. And God, may your will be done, God, in our lives. We love you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Good night.
Thanks. Bye-bye.